From time to time, the LSAT does change. In this video, I will discuss a recent change in the games. Recently, the LSAT started using a new type of rule in line games. Now, most prep material out there doesn't cover this, so pay attention, because until you understand how to properly handle this rule, it is very difficult and very time-consuming. Once you learn the technique, you should do fine. If you haven't already downloaded the supplement for this video, pause this recording and download sample number 2 from getprep.com/video. You will need this supplement. Your prep books and old LSATs will probably not have examples of this rule. Look at the fourth rule. That rule basically says F is delivered earlier than C or else F is delivered later than D, but both are not true. At Get Prepped, we call this an alternating rule. Now, if you diagram this rule exactly as it is written, it looks like this. F is earlier than C, or D is earlier than F. But you don't want to diagram this, because this doesn't help much. Instead, you want to diagram the conclusion. So, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that there are actually two possibilities. Either F is always before C and D, or F is always after C and D. You need to think about this for a moment to understand why there are only two possibilities. Basically, there are two scenarios for F. The first scenario, where F is earlier than C. In that case, D cannot be earlier than F. The second scenario is where F is later than D. In that scenario, C cannot be later than F. And that's how we know that there's only two possibilities for F. You diagram the conclusion like this. F is earlier than C and D, or D and C are earlier than F. Working with this conclusion is a lot easier than working with the rule. Now, let me show you how to use this conclusion. Look at the supplement again. First, let's do the basic diagramming steps of the other rules. The first rule has A earlier than B and B earlier than D. You diagram it like this. The second rule has C earlier than B. You diagram it like this. C is earlier than B. The third rule is a conditional rule. It says that if A is earlier than F, then E is earlier than D. This rule won't play any part in the question we're doing. The technique for this rule needs to be covered in a later video. So for now, you diagram this rule like this. If A is earlier than F, then E is earlier than D. The fourth rule is the alternating rule. Like I showed you, you should diagram the conclusion and not the rule. So your diagram looks like this. F is earlier than C and D, or D and C are earlier than F. Now go to the question. It tells us that A is fourth. Looking at Rule 1 and at the diagram, we can see that B and D need to be later than A. So C, F, and E must be earlier than A, but where? Looking at Rule 4, we see that when F is earlier than D, which is the case here, then F must also be earlier than C. This allows us to make two conclusions. F cannot be third. Also, C cannot be first. The diagram looks like this. You now have enough information to answer the question. The lesson you should take away from this video is that for an alternating rule, there are two possible orders. In this case, either F is earlier than C and D, or C and D are earlier than F.